Shit, okay. Maybe I should sit down. I was gonna, I was gonna sit down and then sit up because I feel like I can't really talk while I'm sitting. But then standing up in one place is even worse somehow. I I have no idea what this video is really going to be. Like I have an idea as to where it's going, but I also feel like at the same time I have like no idea what I'm doing. I don't know. So this video is gonna be a bit different because I don't have a script for this one. Well, technically I have, but then I looked at the script and it was like, I don't want to make this a video essay again. I feel like this is a very personal thing, so I don't know. It feels just ridiculous to make a whole ass script for me to just go harumph harumph. Nah, I don't like how people talk about this harumph harumph, that kind of thing. Like, nah, I'm not wasting time on this. But I do want to talk about something that I've kind of been witnessing in the fandom a little bit on Sans specifically. If you read the title, you know what kind of the subject is. Maybe not. I don't know how vague I'm gonna make this. Also, I'm going to just play. I'm just gonna let it play in the background. Bedtime Simulator, just so the 116 deaths don't haul over me anymore. It can't hurt me anymore, Sans Undertale. Maybe I'll also let there play a speed paint or something of the sort. Maybe also a character dancing in the tub. Who knows? Whatever keeps your attention span active, I guess. But yeah, I want to make this a bit of a shorter video, but also kind of a bit of a different kind of type of video because, just to see how it works and also just to have something a bit new on the channel. Why not? Um, the first thing I want to say, first of all, thank you for like the amount of likes and views on the recent video. I know not everyone agreed on everything, and some points were really interesting. Some points made looking at the comment section really, really fucking difficult. Not gonna lie, but I'm still very grateful for it, and yeah, I'm glad that people were at least having somewhat of a good time with it. Um, despite that though, I've seen something reoccurring once in a while, not just in the comment section, but something in the fandom in general, and it has a little bit to do with Sans. And before I get into this, I kind of want to explain my point of view with how I viewed Sans the first time I played Deltarune Chapter 1. Funny enough, at the time in 2018, I was actually starting to get away from Undertale a little bit, and when I first heard of it, when I first heard Deltarune came out, I mean, I saw the tweets. I think I had just joined Twitter for the first time, I think, that year. So when it came out, I actually did see the Gaster tweets, which was fucking incredible, by the way. That was amazing. Yeah, like I wasn't sure what that was at first, yeah, because the profile was black and all that. But anyway, when I got into it, I was at first going to just watch a Let's Play because I thought it was like another game. Well, it was a game, but like a game that you have to pay for. And fun fact, I'm not really a gaming person, which I think most people have figured at this point. And up until that point, I hadn't even played Undertale because I didn't have a controller at the time, and as I've explained it many times, but my hand is just not good with keyboards, like at all. I'm sure if I like trained it or something, I would have figured it out by at some point, but this is just not for me. But when I realized that the thing was a demo, like the Let's Player, I don't know who I was watching, but when the Let's Player said it was a demo, meaning that it was free, I realized, oh, wait, this is a perfect way to check if it is really that bad with like the controls. And so I went into it, and not gonna lie, it was a bit tough. It was still difficult for me, but it showed that it wasn't impossible. And I think a few months after that, I did in fact actually play Undertale properly for the first time, like after 4 years, I think, which is still incredibly funny to think back on. But anyway, when I first played chapter 1, I think everyone just went through this phase when they first played it, where it was like, oh, is this Undertale 2 or something? And after a while, by the time you get to the end of it, it's like, no, this definitely feels like Toby poking at the fan base a little bit, like, hey, I know you've been doing AUs, now let me show you what a real AU looks like, that kind of thing. This was before I realized that Deltarune was technically, as a concept, older than Undertale, so finding that out in retrospect is still so fascinating. But yeah, by the time we get to like the moment where we actually meet Sans in Deltarune, by that time, we got to know Susie, we got to know the Dark World, we got to know the basic lore of this, and most people, including me, were still like, wait, but how does this relate to Undertale a little bit? But I think by the time you get to the Light World and see that the Undyne doesn't recognize Alphys, or certain things don't quite line up and stuff, by the time you do see Sans, you do realize, okay, this is a background character. He's a background character for this story. And you know what? I think I was mostly fine with that idea. Like, I immediately started seeing people doing, like, Megalovania for Deltarune, specifically for Sans, or, like, thinking about how he's in the Dark World. And to be honest, at the time, to me, it seemed a little ridiculous, because it was very clear that he was not going to be very important in the story. This didn't exactly change in Chapter 2, but I think I got a bit more into the mindset of first of all, the fact that we don't even get to see Papyrus was like a fucking misery, but with Sans being like having a bit of a connection with Toriel, like it seemed important, but it was like, it still felt like, kind of a very, 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 very minor subplot or something like that. There was more to do with Toriel rather than Sans. But at that point, I got myself into the headcanon that whatever we're going to find out about Sans, whatever it may be, it was most definitely going to be in the background. Like how it would be like an extremely convoluted Easter egg that you wouldn't be able to do in one go. Like, I think I mentioned this in both of the videos I made, that my idea was that you probably would need to find like clues or something in chapter 6 or 7 that you would not be able to get on like a casual playthrough. And to be honest, I still think that this might be a possibility. Like, that hasn't quite changed, because I feel like Sans is like the Easter egg guy, if you really think about it. Now, of course, there's also the possibility of Papyrus being the egg guy, but that's a different thing. But Sans has always felt like the kind of character that you have to get to know in order to know by just kind of digging into things that you're not supposed to, in a way, if that makes any sense. And that was my mindset for most of it, and to be honest, it didn't really change literally until the end of chapter 4. Like, up until that, I was completely fine with Sans having literally nothing to do with anything. Like, did I enjoy people making Dark World designs for Sans? Absolutely. I always thought this were really fun, but I never actually thought there was a possibility at all for him to be important in narrative. And to be honest, I still don't. But the way he's important, unimportant has sort of changed a little bit. In the sense of like, okay, I don't think he's going to be like part of the chapter 7 climax or something like that. No, that's not going to happen. But the idea that he's going to be like a one-off important character, kind of sort of like Birdly is a weird example to give, because Birdly is seen as part of the Fun Gang, and I don't want to discredit that, but I also feel like he's also in the chapter 2 Dark World specifically because of Noelle, and I feel like Sans would be like in a similar kind of position where it would be mostly specifically for Toriel or something like that, whether it's platonic or romantic. I already gave my opinion on that, but that's not important for this. Whatever the relationship status is, I guess, in this, that it would be similar to that kind of connection, if that makes any sense. If I were to say something else, though, look, I don't care if you don't like the Sans is from Deltarune, like Undertale Sans is from Deltarune. If you don't like that, then that's fine. I feel like there is a difference between I feel like there's just, you already see me losing myself. I really need a script for this, but who cares? I feel like there is nothing wrong with just disliking it for a writing decision, right? Like, depending on how you view Sans, depending on how you look at everything in Undertale, I can understand why him being from Deltarune would be kind of a detriment to his character. I understand where it's coming from, depending on how you view him. I have a bit of a different interpretation of him, or at least the way I personally look at it. For me, it would still make sense. But if it is like a gripe, if it is like a personal writing gripe, then I can't convince anybody from like not liking it. Like, okay, I see, I understand, have a nice day, sir. I mean, it's like the same thing with me and Asgore a little bit. Like, I personally don't like the direction with Asgore, but at the same time, I can't really say that that's like a bad writing necessarily. It's just a bad writing choice from my personal standards, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's like badly written. It's just something that I personally wouldn't go with, and it's a bit of a gripe of me personally, and I feel like it's kind of in that. So what I'm about to say is not about someone just disliking a concept, right? This is not about that. Everyone has their writing preferences on that. What I think, however, is I think too many people see the fandom's response to Sans as a way to justify him not having anything to do in Deltarune. And I feel like, okay, if someone were to play Undertale completely independent of the fandom, like let's say someone just is just a baby, and and it's just, some of you played it as babies, I still can't fucking believe that, but let's say someone just plays it, Undertale, just straight, and okay, there's no way to play it straight, but you know what I mean. Someone plays it just straight, and you decide then to immediately go to Deltarune, like immediately, like if figured out all the little things, figured out all the little secrets and stuff, would you still really dislike Sans being in the story? Because I feel like Undertale is in a really weird position when it comes to its main characters, because if you think about it, the main character really on Undertale is just Frisk, right? Frisk is the only actual main character in Undertale. Literally every other character is technically an antagonist. I mean, Toriel is an antagonist to a certain degree because she like blocks your path. Maybe there's another literally term for it, but Papyrus definitely is an antagonist. Undyne is an antagonist. Asgore, obviously, is an antagonist. Mettaton is an antagonist. Sans, at some point, is an antagonist. But none of them, of course, are villains or something. They're not like Flowey. But they're like still an ensemble in some way. It's not like when you like have things like My Hero Academia or Mob Psycho, where there's like an ensemble cast that are part of the main cast. Undertale characters, on the other hand, most of them, a majority of them, aside from maybe Alphys, are all antagonists in a certain way. So we kind of treat them almost in a different way. And I think this has kind of distorted the idea of which characters are actually important and which are not. And I think Sans is in this interesting position where he is clearly so goddamn important in Undertale that I think some people think that because of that, he's not allowed to be important anymore in Deltarune, when I feel like Sans specifically is not just important for Undertale Deltarune's main narrative, but mostly in their lore. Like someone put it so well on Twitter. What was it? I think people overestimate how narratively important Sans has to be in order for Undertale Sans to be from Deltarune, I think. Again, we're not exactly talking about this, but I feel like some people overestimate how much he needs to be in a narrative in order to be important to its lore, if that makes any sense. And I think part of that has to do with this over-obsession that people had of him and Undertale and Deltarune, because of Undertale, that because it means that in Deltarune he's not allowed to have like the spotlight because people would like over focus on him, and you know what, I will agree. Part of us, especially me, I won't fucking deny it. I will be hyper focused on that. But at the same time though, I feel like it's important to acknowledge what the story actually has presented to us and not just look at how the fandom or the world has reacted to Sans. Because, first of all, again, Deltarune is kind of technically conceptually older than Undertale. So, I don't think Toby would just throw in Sans just because he's popular or equally remove him because he got too popular or something. Like, Sans is clearly important for many things, and I get the annoyance a little bit, but at the same time, I feel like it's weird to think that he's not allowed to be Sans. I also feel like, I think people overestimate how much we actually know of Sans. Like, here's the thing. Undertale, I said the sentence in the first Sans video I made about how Sans is narratively not that important in terms of the pacifist run. And I still stick by that, but I want to elaborate a little bit on what I meant here. Because, of course, Sans is the first person you meet in Snowdin. You get this immediate subversion between serious to goofy in that way. But something that I think some people forgot is that you don't actually have to talk to Sans at all. Like, the amount of focus there is on Sans actually is very minimal if you play it just straight pacifist. I mean, with Snowdin, you could literally just walk through the entire Snowdin area and just never talk to him, and the only dialogue you get is like some banter between him and Papyrus. And afterwards, like, you can just straight ignore him in Waterfall, just straight up. You don't even have to talk to him in the MTT Resort, like, at all. Like, the whole thing is just is not mandatory at all, and the only time you actually have to talk to him afterwards is in Judgment Hall, whatever, Last Corridor, whatever the fuck. And Last Corridor for me in particular is important. Like, I'll get to that in a second. The only other thing that you can, that is also kind of important is the phone call, but at the same time, especially for like the other neutral endings, like, if it's just a pacifist run, like, imagine if all the other routes didn't exist. If it was just a pacifist run, you could literally write Sans out and almost nothing would change. Like, the whole subversion thing in the beginning could be, like, Papyrus himself in some way, if you think about it. Like, you know, tall-ass skeleton being intimidating and then turning out to be goofy. Like, it could have just been Papyrus, the whole Snowdin area, if you think about it. And then there's... And then there's the connection with Toriel and the Promise, and sure, that is very important, but you kind of get that idea of Toriel's care also as well, and I feel like it could have, and again, if you don't talk to Sans, you wouldn't even know about that, so it really doesn't fucking matter in a certain sense. And so, and then in the Last Corridor, you know, the whole judgment thing, I still wonder about why it's not Asgore. Like, technically, Asgore could have been the one to give you this judgment. Like as a way to maybe justify himself to take a life, even though he really doesn't want. Like, it doesn't matter what level you are at. He'll still feel extremely bad about it, but, you know, he's a king. Him doing the judgment would be completely fine. But it's Sans who gives it his judgment specifically. And I feel like Sans is specifically only around. Like, again, if we just think about pacifist for just a second, just a pacifist run. If we look at Sans and how he's important, it's always connected to the meta-narrative in some way, shape, or form. In the beginning with the whole subversion, you can see that as like a subversion with the RPG stuff, but the most important is when he has to talk with you about Flowey at Grilby's, and then you also have the MTT Resort, where I'm sure most of it is about Toriel and him and the Promise, but the whole thing about him understanding that you can die multiple times, like that whole shtick. Like, I remember someone like pointed out, like the whole fact, like, it's not just because he's seeing your reaction to it, but just the simple fact that he says, like, that he just says, you haven't died a single time. It's like an immediate call out there. It's like, oh, wait, why do you know we can die multiple times? That's weird. Why can you do? Who are you? that kind of thing. And then there's the whole secret lab thing, which again, you have to do like you have to reset like 4 times. Well, not reset, but reload before saving after before the conversation in order to even get to the lab. I think people forgot how convoluted it is to actually find things about Sans. Like, as a fandom, of course, we have gathered so much information about him through these small things that are sprinkled throughout the game, but we don't actually know anything about him if you really think about it. Like, the lab in itself, it doesn't give us all that much any answers, really. It just gives us like wait, something's going on here, but what? And the only time where we really get more meat on Sans, really specifically, is in a Jenna run, and even then, it's not a lot, actually. Like, sure, the fight itself is like, why the fuck is this fight so hard? I did not want to hear anything about the fucking difficulty of this. I know some people find that super fucking easy. I don't give a shit. The fight is meant to be hard for first-time players. I don't give a shit about that, this whole discussion. But then there's the whole thing about the blasters being called gaster blasters, which you wouldn't know unless you actually go into the fucking files to actually see that. And in the fight itself, we only know 2 things that make us more curious about Sans. The fact that he is aware of timelines and saying that there's like something jumping left and right, and he's talking about hour reports, so he's talking like maybe Alphys. And Alphys, you don't know that these 2 are friends or have some connection if you don't talk to Alphys like 3 times at the end of Pacifist, which is like, who does that? Who talks to the characters 3 times in a row? No, that's not something you do normally. Like, maybe twice, sure, but 3 times? Who does that? Yeah, and then the second thing in the fight that is damning, which is of course like fucking infamous now, is the place he can't go back to, like him giving up to go back a long time ago. Like, those are the 2 things you get from this fight. Like, I think us trying to figure out what that means with, me with the out-of-character comic or Dr. Megalo or whatever, or other people making, like, a bunch of comics, like Docs of Future Past, handplates, that whole pizzazz, that whole jazz thing. We all just try to figure out a puzzle of all the things that we got that are, like, so small, sprinkled into everything, to a point where we think that we have gotten so much out of him when we actually don't have anything at all. And it's fucking insane to me how someone... God, that pissed me off a little bit. I understand if you don't want Sans to be important in Deltarune in the sense that he would become Sans Undertale afterwards. Like, I can understand again, if you don't like that writing choice, that's fine. But calling the note where it says "don't forget" in his lab at just a fucking teaser is kind of fucking insane to me. Like, I don't know what's going on there either. I'm not gonna pretend I know. No one fucking knows. But calling it just a teaser is insane to me. Like, and then there's of fucking course, there's also the connection with the song "It's Raining Somewhere Else." This is literally I deleted Twitter from my phone, and I got a notification on of YouTube, and like the very first thing I saw, someone like immediately wanting to say, hey future me here, we know now about where this song comes from because of this title. And I didn't actually read the whole thing. I just saw, hey, future me here, and I immediately know, this is spoiler, I don't know what this is about, I don't want to hear it. And when I heard it in the actual game, it was like, oh, fuck. I still don't know what that means. It could still not confirm anything, but at the same time, it is so clear how fucking important it is, at least to a certain way. And I want to circle back to what I said before. I think I said that before. I have no idea what I said up until this point. But Sans, to me, is not important in the sense that he will be a huge part in the narrative in and of itself, but that he's important in terms of its lore. And again, as this one person pointed it out, Sans does not have to be important to the main narrative in order to be important to the overall connected universe, I guess, in some way. And I think people are just. I think people take the overexhaustion from the fandom of like multiple years as a way to justify not. Of it almost not being allowed to have anything to do with Sans. It's similar to Gaster, actually. Sans and Gaster, both in the fandom, are like so overused, and Gaster even is the funniest one between the two of them because there's literally fucking nothing about him unless you really dig into the files or go into the fun valleys and stuff. And yet there's just so much stuff about Gaster in the fandom itself that people have just kind of forgotten that there's not actually a lot going on there. Now, Sans, of course, there's a little bit more going on there, but these two are like the Easter egg brothers, if you want to call it that. That's literally what they are, and just kind of denying that there's some connection there because you personally can't see it. And again, if it's like a writing choice you don't like, then that's one thing. But I don't know, just denying that there is anything at all that needs to be connected. Like, if you don't like it as a writing choice, that's one thing. But thinking that there's nothing logically to connect to, like that, I feel like that's just a step too far in a little bit. So yeah, I don't know where this is going. I think I've talked about everything I wanted to talk about, but I just want to basically summarize it in that way that I don't think Sans is going to like be majorly important to the main story that is about Chris, Susie, and Ralsei and Noelle. I don't think it's that. But he is important to its world building in some way, and it's starting to piss me off a little bit because I kind of, to be honest, I did kind of fall into the similar trap in one of the videos where I said he had the exposure of a lifetime. But in retrospect, Toby has been writing this for 14 years, I think, in some shape or form. It feels insane to think that he just changes characters around just because one in particular got so much popularity, parody, that he doesn't really have control over it. I mean, did he fucking monetize the shit out of it? Of course he did. I mean, if you're a creator and you realize a character is really popular, then you're gonna monetize the shit out of it. But when it comes to like storytelling, I don't think Toby would just throw away a character that is so beloved just because he got too much attention or something. I don't think that's what this is about. And I do think it's important to just try to see Deltarune and Undertale outside of the perspective of the fandom and just focus what's actually in the game, what is being discovered, what is actually being presented to us, and could this potentially give us some more answers. Maybe it doesn't give us all the answers. I don't want there to be more answers, but I do think denying that there is any importance with Sans just because he had some exposure before is a bit ridiculous to me. And if he just walks off the moment chapter 5 that happens, and you know what, you can just clown in the comments, I don't care. But I feel like it would be nice to see Sans having some minuscule relevance a little bit, because it's so clear that there is something going on with him in some way, and I feel it's a little sad to view the over-obsession that was going on in the fandom itself as like an excuse to not being allowed to see it in canon anymore, because you might have had enough of the of the ideas that everyone else had. That doesn't mean Toby is. And I think he is allowed to continue his own story however the hell he wants. And I think getting upset at that is, I don't know, it feels a little odd to me. So, yeah, summary, I'm a little better at a Bad Time Simulator. I hope that was kind of fun to still see in the background of me failing over and over. I'm pretty sure I'm failing over and over again, who cares? And I'll see you next time, maybe, I don't know. This is a very weird video. I really hope it's not too long. It might be already to 30 minutes, who knows. Oh, it's at 30. Okay, bye.